Nigeria is Africa's most populous country with 240 million people, and it's rapidly growing. By 2100, the nation is projected to have a population of 541 million people. Does Nigeria have the capability to be the next China? It is possible. Nigeria's history is tumultuous and intricate. Long before European contact, the region was home to powerful empires like the Hausa city-states in the north, the Yoruba kingdoms in the west, and the Igbo communities in the east. In the late 19th century, Britain colonized the area, merging diverse ethnic and linguistic groups into a single entity called Nigeria in 1914. Nigeria gained independence in 1960, but the following decades were marked by political instability, military coups, and a brutal civil war from 1967 to 1970 known as the Biafran War. After returning to civilian rule in 1999, Nigeria became a democratic republic, yet it continues to wrestle with issues such as corruption, economic inequality, and regional violence. This raises a question: is Nigeria on track to become the next China? The total fertility rate measures the average number of children a woman within a given society will have during her childbearing years. In 1975, 50 years ago, China had a total fertility rate of 3.57, well above the replacement rate of 2.1. In 1980, the Chinese government became concerned about overpopulation and implemented a one-child policy. This slowed down the population growth, but it actually worked too well. During the time period of the policy, other Chinese aged, leading to a shrinking workforce, and because of this, China relaxed the policy in 2016, allowing all couples to have 2 children. However, birth rates continued to decline, prompting the government to introduce a 3-child policy in 2021 and various incentives for families, such as tax breaks and childcare support. Now, the current total fertility rate is 1.55, comparable to other industrialized nations, and even lower than the US' 1.84. Nigeria's max total fertility rate occurred in 1978 when it reached 6.92. But unlike China, in the last 50 years, it hasn't dropped as rapidly. Unlike China, which implemented that one-child policy, Nigeria never pursued such aggressive population control measures. In fact, in Nigeria, large families are often seen as a source of social and economic strength, especially in rural areas where children contribute to household labor. Additionally, lower levels of female education, limited access to modern contraception, and a weaker healthcare infrastructure have made it more difficult to reduce birth rates. Religious and cultural norms also play a significant role in shaping family size preferences. 53.5% of Nigeria's population is Muslim, and generally, Islamic nations tend to have higher total fertility rates. As of today, Nigeria's total fertility rate stands at 4.52, which, while lower than before and other African nations, is still way above the 2.1 replacement rate. While this rate may decrease in the next few decades, it's likely that Nigeria won't follow a similar demographical pattern to China, and it will continue to see a substantial population increase. This is the one difference that may possibly make Nigeria the next China, as by 2100, there are some projections that show the nation may have over 1 billion people. Meanwhile, China is projected to go below that number by then. This connects directly to economic output, as GDPs are higher with higher populations. Soon, China is going to become a post-industrial nation, where the tertiary service sector becomes a dominant economic driver. For much of the 20th century, China was a very poor and rural country, with most of its population engaged in subsistence farming and lacking access to modern infrastructure. After decades of political turmoil, including the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, China's economy was stagnant and underdeveloped. However, beginning in the late 1970s, under Deng Xiaoping, China shifted towards economic reforms and opened itself up to global trade. By embracing industrialization, the country rapidly expanded its manufacturing sector, built massive infrastructure, and moved millions of people into cities. This transformation turned China into the world's factory, dramatically reducing poverty and making it the second largest economy in the world. In recent years, however, China has begun shifting from an industrial-based economy to a more service-oriented one. As incomes rise and consumer demand grows, sectors like finance, technology, healthcare, and education are becoming increasingly important, marking China's transition into a tertiary sector nation. We are used to seeing products we buy made in China, including electronics, toys, and textiles. It's been this way for a few decades. If China continues its evolution into the tertiary sector, industrial output will fall, and like what happened with the US during the 20th century, will be outsourced to poorer developing countries. And that's where Nigeria comes into the picture. Nigeria's current GDP is $1.275 trillion, and it's seen a 2 to 3% growth rate over the last few years. Its per capita income is around $5,600 a year, and its Human Development Index, which measures health, income, and education, is 0.548, classified as low, but higher than other African nations. As of now, its main economic sectors are mostly primary, including oil extraction and mining, along with some light manufacturing. Nigeria has a very young population, with its median age being 19.4 years old. In contrast, China's is 40.2 years old, although 50 years ago, it had a similarly young population. Considering Nigeria's youth explosion, many are entering the workforce, unlike China, which many are leaving due to retiring and aging. Lagos, a city on Nigeria's Atlantic coastline, is the nation's largest and is also among the world's largest with 13 million residents. And it's rapidly growing as more and more Nigerians from rural areas migrate there. This is leading to the city becoming a hub for industry and other economic functions. What may happen in the next several decades is that multinational corporations may look elsewhere other than China in search of new manufacturing centers. And Nigeria checks off all the boxes for this to happen. With its large youthful population and relatively low labor cost, Nigeria is well positioned to attract labor-intensive industries such as textiles, food processing, and light electronics, and possibly in the future evolutionize into heavy manufacturing, such as making computers, smartphones, and automobiles. While Nigeria does have potential to become a manufacturing powerhouse, there are many current limitations. One of the foremost issues is the unreliable power supply, which forces many manufacturers to rely on costly diesel generators, thereby increasing production expenses and reducing competition. Another thing is the infrastructure. In order to have a capable economy, a strong infrastructure is needed, and nowadays, Nigeria doesn't have that. Deficits, such as poor road networks and inefficient port facilities, further complicate logistics and distribution, leading to delays and increased cost. While Nigeria's population is growing, emigration, people leaving, is present, with the nation having a negative migration rate. Younger individuals, especially well-educated ones, are leaving because of the lack of suitable jobs. Unemployment rates are surprisingly low, only about 3%, but approximately 41% of Nigerian workers were engaged in low-skilled occupations. Governmental instability is a major limiting factor to Nigeria's economic development, especially in efforts to grow its manufacturing sector. On the Democracy Index, Nigeria has a ranking of 4.16, classified as a hybrid regime, but the good news is that in the last 20 years, this has increased substantially from when it was an autocratic 3.52 in 2006. But in terms of corruption, Nigeria ranks low, scoring 26 out of 100, although this is improving slowly. When multinational corporations look for locations to build factories, they want a nation which is stable, so Nigeria may eventually meet that criterion. Another environmental concern is increased air pollution. Currently, Nigeria gets 77% of its power from fossil fuels, and it produces 23.9 micrograms per cubic meter of air pollution, higher than other industrialized nations, but significantly lower than Bangladesh, which produces 80 micrograms. However, if industry moves to Nigeria, and the nation is still using fossil fuels for power production, that rate will increase. However, air pollution isn't the only problem. Makoko, often dubbed as the Venice of Africa, is a floating settlement in Lagos, Nigeria, where thousands live in homes built on stilts over the Lagos Lagoon. The community lacks basic sanitation infrastructure, leading to direct discharge of sewage and waste into the lagoon. This has transformed the once thriving fishing waters into polluted channels, posing significant health risks to inhabitants. Residents often rely on boreholes for water, which can be contaminated due to the proximity of waste, resulting in diseases like cholera and typhoid. If more people move to Lagos for industrial work, this may exacerbate Makoko's problems and lead to more woes. There's no doubt that worldwide industrialization will geographically shift. Nigeria is a prime candidate nation for this introduction, due to it having Africa's highest population, a very young population, and a rapidly growing economy. Besides Nigeria, other developing African nations may also become the next Chinas, including Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania in East Africa, all of which have large and growing populations. And just like American corporations outsourced to China during the late 20th century, China may do the same decades down the road, and set factories up in Africa to manufacture their corporate products, with Chinese brands such as Huawei, Lenovo, TCL, and OnePlus being ones that may make the move. This manufacturing shift will take some time to happen, and there may be even some curveballs, such as increased geopolitical instability in Nigeria and other African nations, which may be a deterring factor. Do you think that Nigeria has the possibility to become the next China? I'd love to hear your opinion, so please leave your feedback in the comment section below. That concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you like learning about the world, you found the right channel. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, Urban to Earth, to view more videos. Until next time!